Every time you see a dark spot blooming on your bathroom ceiling, a very specific economic machine activates. You go to the store, purchase a bottle of mold remover for perhaps $8, spray it, and the stain vanishes. But exactly 3 months later, it returns, darker and more entrenched. You buy another bottle, or worse, you panic and call a remediation service, handing over $3,000 for a crew in hazmat suits to tear out your drywall and spray commercial-grade fungicides that leave your house smelling like a toxic factory. This is a meticulously engineered cycle of endless consumption. The cleaning products you are buying are scientifically formulated to fail. They bleach the surface layer, making it invisible, while simultaneously introducing heavy amounts of water that actually feed the deep root system. You are not killing the mold, you are feeding it. If you have a returning dark patch sitting in your house right now, drop the word infested in the comments. We want to know exactly how much money has been drained from your pockets by these chemical conglomerates. The global mold remediation market is projected to surpass $12 billion by the year 2029, generated entirely from a biological problem that was permanently solved nearly 80 years ago. They need you to believe eradicating household fungus requires proprietary synthetic blends. Look at the back label of any expensive mold killer. The primary active ingredient is simply sodium hypochlorite, commonly known as household bleach. It attacks the melanin in the fungus, rendering the surface colony transparent, but its chemical ion structure completely prevents it from penetrating porous surfaces. The active bleaching agent stays on the top surface, while the water component, which makes up roughly 90% of the bottle, soaks deep into the building material, watering the invisible roots. They sell you the temporary cure, which guarantees the disease will return. You are spending thousands of dollars over a lifetime on a problem that can be eradicated forever with a $1 liquid. A liquid that emits zero toxic fumes and systematically destroys the fungal network down to its deepest microscopic roots. To fully understand this massive consumer deception, we have to look to the year 1944. During the height of the Second World War, the United States Department of the Navy faced an invisible crisis in the Pacific theater. Submarines are essentially sealed metal tubes perpetually submerged in the freezing ocean, creating the perfect biological breeding ground for highly toxic black mold. It was rapidly eating through sensitive electrical wiring and sickening the sailors trapped inside. If the Navy had used modern bleach-based sprays, the toxic chloramine fumes would have fatally poisoned the crew within hours. They needed absolute, permanent eradication. According to deeply buried naval archives, military engineers did not turn to synthetic bleach. They turned to an aggressive, low-cost cellular disruption method using a specific concentration of a simple, naturally occurring organic acid. The official documentation from 1944 reveals that when this acidic compound was applied to the infested bulkheads, it resulted in the total and permanent destruction of the mycotoxin networks. The submarines remained exceptionally clean. The constantly recirculated air remained breathable and free of dangerous spores. The protocol was a complete, undeniable scientific success. If you made it this far, you already know more about this than 99% of consumers. Subscribe and share this video to actively protect this knowledge before the industry tries to erase it again. Because what I am about to show you dismantles everything you have been taught about household maintenance. When a professional remediation contractor arrives at your home, they are performing a choreographed piece of psychological theater. They don heavy hazmat suits, seal your hallway with plastic sheeting, and deploy massive negative air pressure machines that make your quiet house sound like an active construction site. This spectacle is intentional, designed entirely to visually justify their $3,000 invoice. Yet, beneath the hazmat suits, the chemical agents they are spraying are often nothing more than highly concentrated variations of the exact same fundamentally flawed bleach you can buy at the grocery store. It bleaches the surface, waters the roots, and guarantees that within 12 months, the dark spots will bloom once again. 8 years after the Navy deployed this protocol, a brilliant researcher named Dr. Aris published a definitive paper in the Journal of Applied Mycology in the historic year 1952. The groundbreaking study outlined exactly why this simple acidic compound was vastly superior to commercial bleaches. Dr. Aris proved through cellular microscopy that this natural liquid alters the internal osmotic pressure of the living fungal cells. Fungal spores are protected by a tough outer barrier made of chitin, the exact same material found in the hard exoskeletons of insects. Bleach cannot penetrate chitin, but this specific organic acid easily permeates the dense chitin wall. Once inside the organism, it physically breaches the delicate cell membrane and aggressively dissolves the internal molecular structure, turning the complex root system into a biologically dead, inert mass. Once the structural root is chemically destroyed, it cannot ever regenerate. So why is this miracle of basic chemistry not proudly sitting on the front shelf of every hardware store? The answer is the darkest truth of the modern consumer economy. You cannot patent a basic, naturally occurring organic acid, and what you cannot patent, you cannot build a billion-dollar industry on. The chemical giants recognize the catastrophic threat this unpatentable compound posed to their profit margins. If a standard homeowner can permanently solve a deep structural mold problem with a $1 liquid, the entire recurring revenue stream of the cleaning industry dries up overnight. They didn't hide it because it failed. They hid it because it worked too well. It was a calculated corporate strategy designed to ensure that you forever remain a terrified, lifetime subscriber to their heavily marketed chemical sludge. But we are breaking that cycle of endless exploitation today. The exact liquid the United States Navy used to sanitize their vital submarines is an extremely concentrated form of pure acetic acid. I am not talking about the heavily diluted liquid you put on a dinner salad. I am talking about a highly specific application of pure, unadulterated white vinegar strictly containing at least 6 to 8% absolute acetic acid, combined with a microscopic amount of a specific natural surfactant designed purely to break the surface tension of the fungal colony. However, most people do this wrong and completely ruin their walls. They splash some weak kitchen vinegar onto the ceiling, wipe it away with a dirty sponge, and then complain when the black spots inevitably return. They fail because they treat it like a simple surface stain rather than an entrenched biological infection. Here is the exact, singular missing step that guarantees the result. First, you must obtain heavy cleaning-grade white vinegar, sometimes labeled as industrial or horticultural vinegar, which possesses a higher acidity level resting exactly around 6 to 8% pure acidity. This potent fluid costs roughly $1 a single gallon at most bulk supply stores. You must pour this pure, undiluted acidic liquid into a solid, completely opaque, dark spray bottle. Do not add any water to this mixture. Adding pure water is exactly what the chemical companies purposefully do to ensure your failure. Ultraviolet light rapidly degrades the vital molecular bonds of pure acetic acid, which is exactly why a light-blocking bottle is a critical component of this military protocol. Next, you must carefully add exactly 3 single drops of a basic, unscented liquid dish soap directly to the acid. This is your vital surfactant. Dangerous mold spores are coated in a microscopic thick lipid layer that actively repels thin water-based liquids. The dish soap acts as a sharp chemical wedge, breaking this protective lipid barrier, allowing the harsh acetic acid to deeply penetrate the entire colony instantly. Now you must aggressively spray the completely dry, heavily infested surface thoroughly until the liquid is practically dripping down the wall. And here is the most important instruction you will ever receive. Do not scrub it. Do not wipe it. Do not touch it under any circumstances. If you aggressively wipe the wet wall, you are simply smearing the living fungal spores across a wider surface area, planting dangerous new seeds while removing the vital acid before it can achieve total cellular disruption. You must boldly leave the liquid sitting undisturbed on the surface for exactly 1 full hour, no less. During this massive 60-minute window, the concentrated acetic acid is traveling down the complex microscopic mycelium pathways buried deep inside the dark wall, chemically collapsing the rigid chitin cell walls of the deepest invisible roots. After exactly 1 full hour has passed, the entire colony is completely eradicated. Only now do you carefully take a clean, slightly damp microfiber cloth and simply wipe away the dark, brown, inert remains. The dead organic mass will simply slide right off the smooth wall, leaving behind an invisible molecular shield that actively prevents any new airborne fungal spores from ever taking root in that exact location again. The massive chemical monopolies want you to remain dependent on their fragile supply chain. They desperately want you perpetually terrified of the word black mold, so you will simply blindly hand over your credit card month after exact month for their beautifully packaged toxic poison. They deeply rely on your lack of historical knowledge and basic chemistry to powerfully sustain their global economic empires. They need you to be utterly afraid of a basic natural problem that a simple submarine mechanic deeply submerged in the Pacific Ocean during the Second World War easily solved before lunch for mere pennies. But the absolute truth is always significantly cheaper, and the hidden historical truth is always incredibly simpler. They buried the science. We dig it up.